Fear is not your enemy. It's your invitation. An invitation to step into the very place God has already gone before you. An invitation to reclaim the courage that was buried beneath your doubt, your wounds, your past. You see, fear doesn't show up to stop you. It shows up to test how badly you want to promise. And on the other side of fear is freedom. This isn't motivational fluff. This is a spiritual fact. Every great move of God began with someone afraid and obedient anyway. Moses was afraid to speak. Gideon was afraid to lead. Esther was afraid to die. And yet God used them, precisely because they obeyed in the face of fear. Because courage is not the absence of fear. It's obedience in the presence of it. Fear often shows up when you're closest to transformation. It isn't always an enemy screaming stop. Sometimes it's a signal whispering, this is the way. The enemy wants to weaponize fear to keep you stagnant, but God uses it to shape you. Napoleon Hill said, fears are nothing more than a state of mind. And that's true, but Hill also said that a state of mind can be controlled, directed, trained. God did not give you a spirit of fear, but he did give you a mind, a sound mind, a disciplined mind, a mind capable of choosing truth over panic, obedience over paralysis. You weren't born with fear. You were taught it. You absorbed it. You inherited it from a broken world. But that means you can unlearn it. Fear isn't just an emotion, it's a thief. Fear will rob you of your purpose, your voice, your divine timing. It delays what should have been done years ago. It chains the gifted. It silences the call. And worst of all, fear will disguise itself as wisdom. Maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe you should wait. Maybe you're not ready. No, maybe fear is just dressing up as logic. Faith doesn't always feel safe, but it's always right. God said, do not fear, 365 times in the Bible. That's one for every day of your life. Not once did he say, do not fear because it won't be scary. He said, do not fear, for I am with you. Your courage isn't in your situation. It's in your companion. Think of David, a shepherd boy, standing before a warrior bred from birth. Everyone saw Goliath's size. David saw God's promise. Fear screamed, run, but purpose whispered, throw the stone. David didn't kill Goliath because he was strong. He won because he was obedient. He knew what Napoleon Hill taught centuries later in different words, that the greatest weapon in battle isn't muscle, it's mindset. It's definiteness of purpose. It's faith grounded in the vision God already revealed. You are not small. You're just standing next to a giant that's loud. But loud doesn't mean powerful. Courage is quiet, but it moves mountains. Fear is the enemy of clarity. When you let fear lead, you start worshiping safety instead of God. You stay in relationships that drain you. You hide your ideas in notebooks. You lower your voice in rooms you were born to dominate. You begin to shrink. But hear this, God doesn't call the brave. He calls the willing. The bravest people in Scripture, they were terrified, but they said yes anyway. And when they did, history changed. What if the only thing standing between you and the next chapter of your calling is your willingness to move while afraid? Too many people think they have to feel brave before they move. But faith was never about feelings. It was never about comfort. It was never about convenience. Faith is about decision. The moment you decide to believe what God said over what your fear screams, you shift atmospheres. You realign heaven's resources. You give God permission to move through your obedience. That's the secret. Not confidence, not perfection, just obedience. Fear will still knock at the door, but faith answers it. Faith doesn't wait for certainty. It moves with clarity. And clarity doesn't come from looking around. It comes from looking up. Napoleon Hill wrote of 6 basic fears that enslave humanity: poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. And if you pause long enough, you'll realize every one of those fears is rooted in loss. The fear of losing something, someone, even yourself. But God says the opposite. He says when you lose your life in him, you find it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Matthew 10, verse 39. You've been afraid of letting go because you think you'll disappear. But what if God is trying to help you uncover who you really are? Sometimes fear isn't telling you what to avoid. It's revealing what's been blocking your access to breakthroughs. You can't carry both your calling and your comfort. One will kill the other. Fear loves to cling to control, to predict, to micromanage. But control is an illusion. You were never called to control the outcome, just to obey the instruction. Look at Abraham. God told him to leave everything familiar. Everything is safe. Go to a land I will show you. No map, no timeline, just faith. And Abraham went. He became the father of nations, not because he knew the path, but because he trusted the voice. That's what God is asking from you. Not certainty, surrender. You don't need to know the full picture to take the first step. God often reveals vision in motion, not before, not after, but while you walk. Here's something hell doesn't want you to know. The moment you stop obeying fear and start obeying God, you become dangerous. Why? Because now you're moving with divine authority. Now you're no longer asking for permission to be who God made you to be. Now your life isn't just a routine. It's a weapon. Fear loses power the moment you stop feeding it. The moment you say, I won't be ruled by what if, I will be ruled by God said. When you stop letting fear drive, it gets smaller. And when it gets smaller, your courage gets louder. Not because you're brave, but because your obedience activated a God-sized flow in your life. Let's go to the garden. Jesus, the Son of God, kneeling in Gethsemane, sweat like drops of blood falling to the ground. What was he doing? He was facing fear. Not the fear of failure, but the fear of pain, of betrayal, of death. He prayed, Father, if it be your will, let this cup pass from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done. Even Jesus wrestled with fear, but he obeyed anyway. And through that obedience came resurrection, restoration, redemption. Let that sink in. Your obedience might cost you comfort, but it could unlock someone else's miracle. Your obedience could resurrect your family. It could heal a generation. It could activate a movement, but only if you say yes. What if what you're calling delay is actually divine training? What if the closed doors were not rejection, but redirection? Too many people give up in a hallway because the door didn't open fast enough. But God never asked you to break the door down. He asked you to knock and trust. Sometimes he doesn't open the door because you're not strong enough to carry what's on the other side. God isn't just preparing the blessing. He's preparing you for it. That storm you're facing isn't a punishment. It's a sharpening. That fear you're battling isn't your end. It's your beginning. Remember Joseph? He had the dream, but then came the pit, the prison, the betrayal, the silence. And yet it was all necessary. Why? Because before he could manage the palace, he had to master his own pain. Before he could feed nations, he had to grow in isolation. Fear told him he was forgotten. God said, I'm forming you. Fear will always whisper that nothing's happening. But faith knows something is being built in the dark. You think courage feels like fire. You think it comes with loud music, bright lights, and clapping hands. But true courage, it feels like trembling knees and a steady heart. It looks like a quiet yes when everything in you wants to run. It shows up when no one is watching. In the private battles no one will ever thank you for. Courage is deciding. Even if I'm afraid, I will obey. Even if I lose, I will not retreat. Even if they laugh, I will not shrink. That is the spirit that makes demons tremble. That is the kind of boldness the world doesn't understand. Because it's not loud. It's not proud. It's not flashy. It's faithful. And faithful people walk differently. They don't pace. They don't panic. They don't negotiate with fear. They walk. Because they trust the one who walks beside them. Hill wrote, the mastery of fear is a matter of decision. That's it. Not a miracle. Not an event. Not a lightning bolt of bravery. Just a decision. The moment you decide that fear will no longer sit on the throne of your life, everything changes. Fear thrives in indecision. But when you choose faith, firm, unwavering faith, you kill its oxygen. And listen closely. The universe aligns with bold decisions. God responds to unwavering obedience. Heaven backs those who walk even when the way isn't clear. Make the decision, and let your actions testify louder than your doubts. You know why fear attacks you at the doorstep of your next level? Because it knows what's waiting for you there. Fear is loudest at the threshold of breakthrough. Before every miracle, every calling, every elevation, there is resistance. Hell sends its armies to block your vision, because once you step forward in faith, you're no longer reacting to life. You're creating it. Once you obey, you don't just live with purpose. You become purpose in motion. You are no longer a threat. You are a weapon. So yes, fear will fight you. But you have a choice. Will you run from it? Or will you stand, stare it down, and walk through it? Because what's on the other side of that fear is everything you've been praying for. There's a roar in you, not the roar of pride, not the roar of noise, but the roar of holy authority. It's been buried under shame, under fear, under the voices of those who told you, you're too much, or worse, you're not enough. But God says, it's time to rise. It's time to remember who you are, not who the world told you to be, but who heaven designed you to become. You are not your fear. You are not your failure. You are not your past. You are an instrument of power, a living, breathing testimony, a child of the Most High walking with divine purpose. And the world is waiting, not for a perfect version of you, but for the courageous one, the one who dares to move forward even with shaky legs, the one who prays through tears, the one who walks into battle not because they feel brave, but because they are called. You don't need to feel strong to be strong. You just need to say yes. Yes to the uncomfortable. Yes to the stretching. Yes to the assignment. Yes to the vision that scares you. Because anything that scares you and aligns with God's purpose for your life is usually the door, and you don't have to kick it down. You just have to walk through it. Walk trembling. Walk uncertainty. Walk without applause. But walk. And as you move, grace will meet you. Provision will find you. Peace will surround you. And the fear that tried to destroy you will fall behind you. You were never called to live in survival mode. You were called to reign. In faith, in purpose, in legacy. God didn't bring you this far to abandon you now. He brought you here to transform you. So stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop asking fear for permission. Start declaring, I am who God says I am. I will become what He designed me to become. Fear is not my master. Faith is my weapon. You are not fragile. You are forged. You are not broken. You are being built. You are not lost. You are being led. You are walking a God-given path. And courage is your birthright. The world is not waiting for more people who play it safe. The world is starving for people on fire. People lit by faith, grounded in truth, and unafraid to walk where others freeze. Be that person. Be the one who chooses courage over comfort, conviction over convenience, calling over comparison. And when fear comes knocking again, and it will open the door and say, you don't run this house anymore. Because this time, you're aligned, you're ready, and nothing can stop you now.